Hi everyone, my name is David Colon. This is Brooklyn, New York. In the back you can see Manhattan, New York City. I just moved here in August and I can tell you that I swore to myself once that I would never open a restaurant until I got here in May. I started living in Brooklyn in August this year, just a couple of months ago, and I can tell you the potential is crazy. I'm gonna tell you more about it. I just want you to see what I'm working with. Right behind me underneath, it's a construction site for apartments, and these are everywhere here in Brooklyn. I'm actually standing on the deck of my apartment complex, and I, like I said, I would never think or I never thought about doing a restaurant, but I'm actually thinking about it, not just for the class. The class is actually giving me the chance to put it together on paper and figure out if it's gonna work. I'm gonna give you all the details in a minute and see you soon. This is Bedford Street. This is about 4 minutes from my apartment. You can tell that the buildings have apartments on top and mostly restaurants at the bottom. If you look at the different names for the restaurants, you can also tell that they're mostly very specific as opposed to being a broad type of concept. This is an apartment building that is being built only about 1 minute walking distance from Bedford, the street you just saw with all the businesses. So they're coming up everywhere around. This area is growing really, really fast, and there's going to be a need for restaurants and more restaurants in the area. This is a food festival. I just ate here today. A great opportunity to promote a business, whether it is starting it or already going. Starting with the value proposition, the idea is to have an ethnic food type environment. Like everything around here, everything is very specific. Ethnic New Yorkers and people from Brooklyn really like the idea of having something new. We're all targeting, people that want lunch and dinner, and we want to do everything disposable. And what I mean by that is have a counter that sells the product. The person gets to have a seat, eat it, or take it to go. The customer segments we're targeting the locals. They live here, of course, throughout the year. During the tourist season, which is actually right now, around the month of October, November, all the way until February, is our highest tourist season in this area. And the idea is to be able to target both of those segments. People in this area are very concerned about, for example, the environment and things like that. So the idea of selling things that are disposable but they're environmentally friendly will definitely help. The different channels, I'm still trying to figure out and debating if it's going to be a food truck or storefront. I think starting with a food truck and then moving on to onto a storefront would be a good idea. Delivery in this area is massive. Grubhub, Uber Eats, you see them coming in and out of excuse me, the apartments all the time. There's a huge market for that. And the idea and the concept that I'm trying to put out there, it's actually not fast food, but it comes out very quickly. It's made very quickly. I've seen these concepts before. I'll talk about that a little bit more. The customer relationship. There's a lot of vending in this area, a lot of street vending. That's a good idea to reach out to the different customers, to keep them, of course, loyalty programs like many restaurants do, doing promotions, and just becoming members of different organizations in the area that allow us to put the name out there. The revenue is really just direct sales. That's all we're going to do, direct sales to the customer, whether it is at the store or through the internet, when they do Grubhubs and things like that. I am leaning towards starting with the food truck when it comes to channels, and moving on to a storefront if the concept picks up in the area. Delivery here is very big. We have Grubhub, we have Uber Eats, and they're constantly coming in and out of the buildings. On customers from the apartment buildings are all the time requesting food, delivers and are in and out. There's a huge market for that here, and I think having food that can be made quickly and sent out quickly would be a huge advantage. The customer relationships, street vending, tent vending, it's very big in this area also. Every weekend there's something going on where there is some kind of a food truck event or a tent event. Food is being sold. That's a very good way to test, actually just to start and test the market that way, get our product out. And when you start getting those customers, you create loyalty, of course, with good product. But having loyalty programs that help the customer come back would be a good strategy. Promotions, sales, those kinds of things also will help. And having seasonal items. I've noticed in this area, every season something new comes into the menu and it goes away on the next season. And of course, the year comes around and it comes back again. The revenue streams is all direct sales. This is going to be selling directly to the customer, whether it is at the storefront, or is going to be through delivery, but it's directly to the customer. The key resources of self-finance for now. I do have some assets that I'm in the process of selling, so I'll have some of that those finances taken care of, but there's a lot of small business development center help that I can take advantage of. Being prior military, I can look for some of those helps also. I would need a truck or storefront, depending. Again, I'm still working on figuring that part out. The recipes, I do have a couple of ideas of some restaurants, whether we purchase the recipes or decide to come up with them. And when I say we, in this case, it's just me for now. And of course, employees. I'm currently, and I did this because I wanted to really work on learning the restaurant business. I started working at a restaurant in the area to try to get a good idea of what is needed. So of course, employees is going to be one of the biggest resources pretty much for any business. The key partners, considering co-workers, actually, some of the people I've seen that are current managers at different restaurants, and that have great work ethic, and I'm considering talking to them when things start coming together and I get a little closer. Current restaurant owners, every time I go to a restaurant, I'm always talking to the owners in this area. So I know there's a lot of resources, whether it is for advice or people that want to partner. I'm more of the I'm gonna do it on my own type of person, but I know that there's a lot of knowledge out there and wisdom that I will need, mostly because I'm new to this area, and I really what I've learned is by seeing and maybe talking a little here and there, but I'm gonna need some of that help. Of course, suppliers. I'm not very familiar with suppliers. I owned a couple of businesses before this, and suppliers were not an issue for me. They were both service businesses, and I did not need maybe just a small supplier for small things, but nothing like a restaurant, which the suppliers are going to be, something very important, mostly because I want to keep the price down for the customer, to target customers mid to lower end when it comes to income. And I'm gonna have to keep costs low. The cost structure, this is just to be determined. Really, this is way too early to figure those things out. I'm working on figuring that out at the moment. I think throughout, the class is gonna help move me forward to actually make, put some of those numbers down and start to figure that out. Like I said, I opened a business about 11 years ago. 8 years into it, I decided to purchase a building and move into it. And both times, every time I figured how much it was going to cost me, it almost cost me twice as much. So I have a good idea um, when it comes to understanding what is needed, when it comes to renovating and all that. But my problem is I did this in Northwest Florida, which is a whole different animal. Here in New York is very, very different. Everything costs a lot more. So I'm having to ask the right questions, ask the right people to start understanding what I'm working with when it comes to cost. Key activities is just restaurant business. Everything we can do about restaurants. When it comes to being a restaurant, selecting suppliers, like I said, is going to be a huge deal when it comes to pricing. Um, I'm still figuring out concepts other than what I've mentioned already mentioned before. These concepts are dependent on what I'll be learning as I continue um, to explore and ask the right questions. So I'm not very uh, clear about my key activities. I do want to be a restaurant. I know it sounds crazy that I don't have a lot of restaurant experience other than serving and a little bit of marketing help that I provided someone else. Um, but I'm very good about being resourceful and trying to and answering my own questions by doing a lot of research and by asking the right people. So I'm not very clear on the key activities, and those will become more clear as I do my research. And I believe that's the last of it when it comes to this page. Uh, the this is the very first try at this, and as I talk about it, things are just running in my head about all the things that I have to think about, and I'll continue to explore those things for the next week, and hopefully a week from now I'll have a better idea and continue on that path.